And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my partner and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm a little bit disenfranchised by the fact that I'm discovering if I could have sued for 8 years of eligibility today. That would have been really nice. I could still be playing college football right now, Blake. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
I do not believe Diego Pavia. I do not.
Neither do I.
Because there, you cannot convince me that his attorneys did not tell him that they were going into court today and saying what they were saying about suing for another year of the red shirt rule and eligibility and him not be behind that. There's absolutely no way that you can convince me. He saw, let's call it what it is. Diego Pavia saw the outcry about this is dumb, and then he took to social media. He's lying.
You know how I read it? I think that his attorneys, I haven't read the court documents. I haven't read the court case. So this is very surface level. We were going to actually spend a segment on this, but we're not going to because he came out and tried to deny it. But it felt like his attorney team was trying to get leverage for something else. And they didn't tell Diego that they were going to bring up a desire to sue for an extra year of eligibility or something like that.
I don't think
Diego, instead of reaching out to his lawyers, probably just fired off a tweet without checking.
I don't think that you can do that, though. I don't think that you can make that claim in court. I don't know this, but it would seem to me that you can't make that claim in court on the behalf of someone and you didn't have the approval of the client to do so in open court. You get what I'm saying? Like, again,
yeah,
like I don't.
It's a fair point.
Like, how can you go to court for someone and someone says, I didn't tell them to do that? Then what are you there for in the first place? They're suing over a year of eligibility. Then why are you there?
That's why I don't believe him. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
It's not. The thing that's silly about it is that Nako's, the way that he framed it was very clear that this was said in court. Diego's responding to it as if it was some sourced information that was a rumor.
Yeah, and he went back after the what do you call those things on Twitter? Community notes or whatever. Note. Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is, but I mean, I guess I don't know. And I know Nakos has been out there. I don't know. I'm gonna completely leave that alone. Nevertheless, we're live. Everybody do us a favor and hit the like and share to all those groups on Facebook and to all those social media pages. If you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every episode brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel today, sign up today, and when you sign up, you can place your bets on what is coming up throughout the week. Paul Skeens, by the way, Joe, throwing this out there. I know this is baseball related. Paul Skeens going to get the over-under 8 strikeouts tonight versus the Cubs. You can go over to FanDuel.com tonight and sign up if you have the discretionary income. If you don't, Joe and I highly suggest, if you don't know what you're doing, don't utilize it. But if you do and you want to go have some fun, go over to FanDuel.com today. If you have questions, you have concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG today for more details. Joe, tonight we're going to start off by talking about Dabo Swinney, who fired off of the media, but we'll talk about Oregon State and Oregon, Michigan and Nebraska, Illinois and Indiana. But we got to go into South Carolina, into Clemson, South Carolina specifically, and talk about Dabo Swinney. He was in the press conference today saying, if they let me go, I'm not done. I'm 55 and I'm not going to the beach. We've won this conference 8 out of the last 10 years. I have a long memory. I know what we've done. Do you? I think Dabo is feeling the heat today at his press conference, and he's firing back to some of the media. When you hear some of Dabo's comments today, how do you respond to those situations?
2 things. So I think that there's the obvious side of this that everyone's pointed out. He's crashing out. He absolutely is. I think that he understands that there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders at the current moment, and he's underperforming. Last year's underperformance was justified. The team was shaky. It was dealing with a lot of headaches, coaching issues from his defensive coordinator. They weren't living up to the typical Clemson hype, but the roster was still developing. It was young. They had roster holes that they had to figure out. And they just eked their way into the playoff and the ACC championship game. This year was a lot worse. This team was supposed to be a title favorite. It wasn't baseless to claim that they were one of the best rosters in the country, but it is baseless to assume that this team is suddenly going to fix its problems overnight. But Blake, the last time that this man did this, the Tyler from Spartanburg thing, the last time he did this, they beat Notre Dame. And they finished the year with a solid finish. Not a crazy good finish, but a solid finish. But they bounced back after he had his weird media moment where he completely went over the top in responding to the caller. He basically did the same thing this time, but he directed it at the media. All I am saying, Blake, is does this mean, is this some sort of a catalyst for them to get locked back in because he's realizing that there's a lot of pressure on him?
Dabo Swinney's buyout in 2025 is $60 million.
That's nuts.
He ain't going nowhere. He's not going to go anywhere. What I think the situation that holds right now is that, yes, he feels pressure. Yes, he feels these situations are coming up. They're underperforming. But he's got to respond differently from it. And I think he's making too small of light to it, meaning you can't come out here and say that, oh, well, we've won the conference 8 of the last 10 years. I mean, people are asking questions in reference to what's going wrong. And you have to answer those questions right and justly, because that's the media's job. That fans want to know. You could get paid $60 million to actually go to the beach if they fired you. That's a large sum of money. People deserve to have questions answered by saying, I have a long memory. Well, does your long memory go back when you didn't want to go in the portal and your offensive line continues to lead the ACC in tackles for loss? What about when you can't, in the first half of any game that you've played, complete more than 50% of your passes? How does that work? So, Joe, he is crashing out. But where do they go from here? I still think they have talent, and they're not technically out of this thing. They could run the table and still find – they only have one ACC loss. How do they finish?
How they finish is obviously it's the broad question that we ask for any time that a coach has an atrocious start to a year. There is a world where they can finish 10-2, and there's a world where they can be on the front door of an ACC championship and to potentially get in there. It's going to be tough sledding. We've talked about how the fact that they lost to Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech has this really favorable path to get to the ACC championship game. Now that they've lost the head-to-head, that's really going to cost them. But, Blake, I do think you bring up the point here. Just because things haven't gone the way that they were supposed to, it doesn't mean that they're going to get rid of them. Historically, before Dabo got there, Clemson was a good program. They were never expected to always be in the ACC championship game. The way that they're playing right now is probably more on par with what the Clemson program was like before he started taking them to national titles.
Literally.
What they're doing right now, where they're 9-3, 10-2, and they're in the mix at the top of the conference, is more replicable or more comparable of what it was like before he really, really took over. So they're not going to fire him just because he created high expectations for himself and now he can't meet them. You said the most important part about this. $60 million is insane. I don't think Clemson has that kind of bread in their athletic departments to can him. Who are they going to go hire and then spend $60 million for him to go sit on his ass?
The biggest lie about the A&M Jimbo Fisher thing was the $75 million. It wasn't $75 million. It was $100 million. You do realize that because they had to fire all their staff. They had to go and do the buyout for Elko. They had to go do all the buyouts for all the other coaches. They had to give them discretionary first-year NIL money. I mean, Joe, at some point, no. I mean, it is an $100 million investment for like A&M to do it. The next coach that goes to the University of Clemson, newsflash, is going to hit the portal. They're going to. So Clemson fans, you haven't, listen, as someone who covers a specific team day in and day out, Joe, collectives are still a thing. The court system literally came out and said you can still do third-party collectives. They don't go through the same things that every other program goes through. And you tried to build it from within like the old days. You have a problem. I'm just going to call it like I see it. You have a problem in the interior of your offensive line that showed up the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You should have gone and replicated that. You could have gone and gotten Josh Thompson. You could have gone and gotten some of these guys in the portal. You could have gone and solidified things for Cade Klubnik. But, Joe, they didn't. They didn't. And I think that is ultimately – let's talk about what's actually hurting them. You recruited from within. That's great. The problem is that everybody else is doing that and then supplementing their rosters, and that's how they're beating you.
So you just brought this up, and it made me think of something that we haven't talked about yet, and we didn't talk about it on Sunday. This year was supposed to be the year for him to prove I'm doing it my way and it's working. I'm doing it my way, and despite everybody going out there and saying that I'm doing it wrong, I am going to defy the odds, and I'm going to prove to you that high school recruiting can still work, and we'll take 2 guys in the portal. I don't know how much more evidence in the world of college football, forget proving Dabo is wrong. I don't know how much more evidence you need to show that if you do not grab at least 5 or so guys, they don't need to be starters, players through the portal to round out your roster, you're not going to succeed. And there's very few programs that are doing what Dabo's doing. Clemson's the most glaring because it's the most stark. We expect them to be able to go and grab 10 Will Helts if they wanted to. It's insane to think.
Week 1. Who had the number 1 portal class in the country?
Yeah, exactly the point.
To your point, it's showing up on the field. Newsflash. When Eric Singleton left Georgia Tech, what did they have to go and do?
They went and brought in Eric Rivers.
Wait, who had the big catch to end it?
Right.
Oh, got it. Again, I mean, Dabo can do and say what he wants, but at some point he's got to look himself in the mirror. Them asking him that question is not conducive. I would love to see the FanDuel odds of what their over-under is right now for the rest of the season. Like, what is their
win total? I don't know if they.
What is their win total? You know, is it 8? Is it 7? Is it 9? Is it 10? I mean, we might need to go over to FanDuel. 3. We might need to go over to FanDuel 4 and figure it out.
I don't know if FanDuel tracks midseason win totals, but I know that FanDuel would be excited that we're mentioning them a lot of times.
Yeah, FanDuel
we'll definitely write all those down.
FanDuel might have it, or they might not. Down. Yeah, let's write all those down. All right, let's get moving here. Everyone does us a favor and hit the like and share to all those groups on social media and all those social media pages. Joe, Illinois and Indiana, a Big Ten clash this weekend. When you look at Illinois versus Indiana, how do you see this one playing out?
Blake, man, I am so excited for this game, dude. And I got to be honest, I don't at this current moment have like a defined pick. I have a lean, which I'm going to share towards the end of this segment. I have a lean where I'm looking. Illinois fans, I don't hate you guys. I just made a really bad pick in week 2. And I was proven very wrong, and my eyes were reopened because I've been an Illinois supporter. I've been an incredible Illinois supporter. Both these teams are very comparable, Blake. Both these teams have various strengths that match up with the opposing team's strengths. You've got well-coached defenses. You've got teams that were effective in adding talent through the transfer portal to bolster key positions. Both these teams are either really good at running, or let me rephrase that. Illinois is really damn good at running the football, and Indiana's really damn good at throwing the ball. They've also averaged over 300 yards rushing to this point. And Altmeyer has made some awesome plays as a passer up until this point. Blake, I think the one part that I'm the most excited about, we get a clash between 2 of the most entertaining coaches in the sport. We get Curt Cignetti, who doesn't give an F, and he's going to talk crap, and he's going to just completely mean mug on the sidelines. And then we got Bret Bielema, who's going to talk crap, and he's going to mean mug on the sidelines. I am so excited for the fact that we're getting blessed with these two guys, and I'm a little bit disappointed that this game is not getting the game day treatment, and it's not going to be the host site of College Game Day.
Over at FanDuel, Indiana's a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under is at 52.5. If you'd like to go over there and place that bet, if you seem fit or deem fit. Joe, Old Dominion lost to Indiana 27-14. And they basically had walkthroughs the last 2 weeks with Indiana State and Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State is a horrible football team. Indiana State is a horrible football team. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is what it is. Joel, they went up against Old Dominion, who ironically was the team that was the one that beat Virginia Tech to fire Brent Key. I don't know why my mind just keeps going there, but it's what happened. I know you ran for 309 yards against them. Why couldn't you separate against Old Dominion? Like, the last time that a team couldn't separate from Old Dominion was last year that we thought that they should, and it was South Carolina, and everybody's like, oh, man, South Carolina might be pretty bad. They can't separate from Indiana, or they can't separate from Old Dominion. Well, what would we figure out? No, Old Dominion's actually a pretty damn good run program. And so I don't know what to make of them. I know Fernando Mendoza has 10 touchdowns the last 2 weeks combined. I know that they got some big weapons like Surratt and the boys coming back. They return a lot of production. But, Joe, the question that I have, and that through 4 weeks or 3 weeks really, I don't have the answer to, is I think this Illinois team is really physical. And with that physicality, how do you uphold? When you face teams like Michigan, when you face teams like Notre Dame last year, when you face off against teams like Ohio State, you got completely outmatched up front. You just, over and over again, your offensive line got outmatched. I don't know what to make of them. So I don't know where to lean on this at all either, really. I don't know where to lean. What I would say is even with it being Duke, I do feel like I know a little bit more about Illinois. I do think that they're physical up front. I do think that running game will get going. And the truth of the matter is that Luke Altmeyer has played very well. And it does not – I want to say this before I kick it back over to you. I'm not saying Indiana's a fraud. I'm not saying that they're not a good football team. I don't know what to make of them because, again, Kennesaw State and Indiana State, you did exactly what you're supposed to do, and I'll pat you on the back. But if people don't want to give credit to Alabama for absolutely obliterating ULM, then why should we give Indiana that same credit when they beat teams that are very bad? This is why fans want to see you tested in the beginning of the year. Why you shouldn't have canceled those games in the beginning of the year. I don't know what to make of you, but I know that I've seen Illinois be very physical through 3 weeks, and I'm wondering, did you fix the real problem that you had a year ago?
I think when you have a brand new quarterback in your system that wasn't there the year prior, you got to give a little bit of grace to Mendoza to figure some things out and to champion him. And I'm a very big Fernando Mendoza fan. He was my number one quarterback over the summer for draft evaluations. I liked him the most out of all the guys that I watched. I had him, I had Sellers, and I Nuss and Klubnik not far behind. And so far, Nuss has been better than Klubnik, but that's not important. I think that we've already seen them get into a ridiculous rhythm. We're starting to see from Mendoza when he's actually protected. He was the second most sacked quarterback last year. We see the poise that he plays with. And when he has actual receivers in Cooper and Surratt, we see what he's able to do as a playmaker. I think that this is a really nice quarterback battle.
It's a great quarterback battle.
Mendoza is the more physically gifted quarterback. I made the mistake of leaning into that way too much with Darian Mensah in the first game. So we have to bring up the fact that this Illinois secondary is tremendous. You have Xavier Cooper, who has been awesome, and Matthew Bailey, who's also been awesome. You have both of those guys that can be big-time playmakers in that Illinois defense. There's two stats that I want to bring up that I think help us figure out where a lean can be found in this game. There's no defined, this team wins, even though the title of the video is going to say that, because I love doing that. In the last two games, Illinois has averaged 12 points and 127 yards in the first half. So they have had very slow starts. Indiana in this offense is not the team to have a slow start against. They have been very explosive, and they've shown explosiveness since that really mediocre first game that they played. Indiana is also averaging 300 rush yards per game, but Illinois is only allowing 74 rush yards and 2.7 yards per carry. So we've got like a little bit of a figuring out to be had here because both their strengths seem to clash with one another.
Well, you're a month into the season, and I don't think that Curt Cignetti, regardless of what he says this week or what he says moving forward, I don't think that he really knows what he has as a team. There's no way that you know. But I would point this out to Illinois. Illinois is in the top 10 for the first time in quite some time. And you made a splash by absolutely dog-walking Duke. And I think for both of these teams in the Big Ten, who, quite honestly, with what is Michigan, we don't know. And we'll talk about Michigan and Nebraska next here. We don't know who that third, fourth team is going to be. We have a good idea that Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State will be there. Mm-hmm. Who's battling out for that fourth team in the Big Ten? Joe, I got to say this. Altmeier's been there and done that. And I think that I've seen a lot of confidence from him. I know that you love Mendoza, and I like Fernando too. But, again, I want to break this game down. And I want to talk about all the things that they have. But I don't think it's fair when you're playing no-name opponents and you're able to run fade routes and you're able to run the ball at will and you're able to do some of the things that you want to do. Joe, we have teams, by the way, in the Big Ten and the SEC that have already faced 3 Power 4 opponents. It's been 3 weeks. Right? Like, I mean, you have a team like Notre Dame that you have more of an answer to. LSU, Ohio State. I mean, Penn State hasn't gone through anything. What do we make of them?
Okay.
I feel as if that Illinois, for what it's worth, is going to, in the beginning of this game, do some things on the line of scrimmage and out-physical them and take it right to them. I do. I'm all with this Bret Bielema team, man.
I know that you're going to kind of dismiss this, but I'm laughing at the fact that I just realized you spent a lot of the offseason criticizing Curt Cignetti and his approach to the schedule and his comments about the schedule and all that stuff. And it's now occurring to me 3 weeks in, you're taking the time out of the segment to point out that they haven't played anyone. I get that. I understand that. I'm very early in.
Black cup of coffee. I'm always consistent.
Okay. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just saying that I think you're justified in bringing up the fact that Illinois overwhelmed Duke. They forced a number of key turnovers. They were way too much, and the experience on that roster showed up for Duke to handle. I think that this is a completely different monster, though. And I said this already. I completely misjudged the Illinois-Duke game. I was so wrong. And I respect Illinois a lot more, and I did respect them coming into the season, but I got a little too cute with it. I let the opinions of some other people sway me in making that decision. I got stupid. I still think that this Indiana team is tremendously better than what Duke was. And I think that one of the biggest parts about this
with that. No,
yeah,
I
know that you're not trying to say that. I know you're not trying to say that. I think that the separation point, though, here, Blake, is that this Indiana defense has some tremendous players that were recognized as All-Americans coming into the season. Mo Kamara, D'Angelo Pons, Aiden Fisher. I'm also a very big fan of Amari Farrell, one of their premier safeties. One note that I also have to add to this conversation. As dominant as Illinois was against Duke, they still allowed 356 yards passing to Darian Mensah. And I think that Mendoza is a lot more composed of a quarterback. I think Mensah is really gifted, but I don't think he's there yet in his development. I think he
also had 4 turnovers, and they were on the field a lot because they had short fields. I get what you're saying, but there was a lot of times where he got the ball right back.
I'm not pointing that out to say that Illinois has some sort of porous secondary. I just hyped up 2 of their key starters that they have in their secondary, but I'm just merely pointing that out. If Mendoza ends up getting into a rhythm and starts popping off like he's done the last 2 games, it wouldn't shock me.
No, I don't. Indiana going out there and handling business wouldn't shock me either. All I'm just trying to say is that I'm not going to make any judgments on you when I know that you've played nobody. I mean, I cannot do it. Do you want me to come in here and continue to give you some of the preseason stuff that we talked about? Sure.
No.
I think. Want to answer the question? Illinois, can you beat a ranked opponent and be the 4th team in the Big Ten? Indiana, you physically got abused against teams along your offensive line. You brought a lot of those key pieces back. So what have we figured out through the first 3 weeks that college football has taught us with teams that have brought the same offensive line back? Oh, they'll take a year development and they'll get better. Okay, name one. Name one. Because I literally have Clemson who's getting walked over. I have 3 of the 5 guys at Alabama that came back that were literal All-Americans that got walked over by Florida State. I got the same situation at Oklahoma, and Joe, they still have the same issues. So are you going to get out physical versus Illinois? Because you're not – hey, you know the only one? I thought you would get me with this. Miami is the only one that I've seen take that next step with the same dudes. Literally.
Wait. So your argument, I don't think Indiana's offensive line isn't the complete same unit from last year. They brought in a number of new players.
Same unit, but you showed me a year ago that you will get out physical at that unit. Are you going to get out physical again?
I think that the players that they added in the portal this offseason have boosted the group. And I think that we're going to – but this is the whole point with this game is that this ends up being a catalyst, I think, for success in 2025. Yeah, it opens the door for one of these teams to go on a run.
I mean, this could be your 4th team in the Big Ten that makes the playoffs if we're just being open and honest here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the winner is gonna end up answering all the questions that you just had there. So that was my final point.
Yep. All right, Joe. We move on to our next one here: the Michigan Wolverines versus the Nebraska Cornhuskers on FanDuel. The Wolverines are -2.5 favorites on the road, but Joe, this over/under is at 45.5. When you on FanDuel, when you see this team and you see these matchups, what are your thoughts?
Blake, this is another tough game to judge. This is a very, very tough game to judge because on one hand, we have Bryce Underwood coming off of an amazing performance against Central Michigan, where they said, Biff Poggi said this, that they gave him the green light to go be an athlete. And he was. A lot of scrambles where he was able to pick up a lot of big plays, 114 yards rushing. Their defense is still loaded with quality starters. Jayshon Barham's back in the mix, and he looks incredibly gifted and dominant. But, Blake, I got to bring up here with this Nebraska squad. I find it a little frustrating that we're spending all this time talking about how all of these young guys are just not living up to the expectations. Talking about how DJ Lagway's not playing well, how Arch Manning's not playing well. Sam Levitt's another guy who hasn't really played as well as we thought he was going to. But we've got Dylan Raiola right now, who's 4th in the country in completion percentage. He's got no interceptions. No one has talked about Raiola. I know that they haven't played anyone. They played a tough-ish opponent. It's not like that's a brutal opponent against Cincinnati, but it was a harder first-game test than most teams had in the country. And I thought that he played well, despite not getting much from his receivers and the guys around him. Blake, I think this conversation starts with Raiola, and it's intriguing to talk about Raiola knowing that he is squared off with Underwood, who is impactful in his own right.
Joe, that game was 20-17. I get what you're saying, but why was it 20-17 against Cincinnati? Now, you can turn around and say, Blake, it's week 1. You still have a lot of young players. You have a lot of people from the transfer portal. There's a lot you can say about Nebraska. I get it. You had a tough opponent, week 1, Cincinnati trying to come out there and knock you off. I get it. The problem that I have, too, here is when I look at that Cincinnati game, not only did Sorsby, the Cincinnati quarterback, I mean, he wasn't great through the air. He only had 69 passing yards on 13 completions. He also ran the ball 13 times for 96 yards.
And
I look at Bryce Underwood and say, listen, this kid can hit things on you. I still think, ironically, Michigan has a better wide receiver core than you're going to see overall, with tight ends and running backs included, a core of guys he can throw the ball to than what Cincinnati had. And I look at the situation and say, look, we finally got to see, when Sherrone Moore wasn't there last week, Bryce Underwood run the damn football. He literally was running the football. I'm like, did they just run a zone read with Bryce Underwood? Did that dude just hit the open field? Uh-oh. I get what you're saying, and this is a massive showdown for Nebraska. The thing for me is more of the X's and O's and players in the field, this game being there. Nebraska's had the issue of not overcoming these big game situations. And I understand that Michigan has already lost a game to Oklahoma. I get it. Is this a signature win moment for them? I don't disagree with Raiola. I actually agree wholeheartedly with your statement that we talked about Arch, we've talked about Lagway, we've talked about all these Klubnik that hasn't lived up to the snuff. But I also want to just point out that they're running an air raid principle. They're getting the ball out quick, and that's a benefit to him. I'm not saying that it's not. And some of his receivers let him down against Cincinnati. But that's kind of my point. And I thought to some extent, when you look at that game and you look at the rushing yards for Nebraska and having 110, this is a completely different beast that you're going up against this week in Michigan. Okay? I'm glad you did what you did against Houston Baptist. Akron literally is, Joe, the worst team in college football right now, based off of every single little thing that they're going through. Their coach, the academics. It is by far the worst. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Joe, they didn't know if they could field a team 3 months ago. Legitimately, they did not know. So, which Nebraska am I getting? Are you finally, with Matt Rhule in year 3, going to turn the page here? Because this is it. This is where you start getting that sodium pentothal and you start getting the answers to this question. This game, more to me, is about, can Matt Rhule's chemistry of a team overcome against a team that, Joe, quite honestly, can't really make another mistake for this season. They can't lose this. They can't be 2-2 coming into Sunday. They can't. I'm really fearful about if Michigan can go in to Nebraska and do exactly what they need to do and run the football. If they can, I think Michigan can pull away here. And I did say pull away. Raiola, however, let me say this. In the back of my mind, I keep saying to myself, man, Raiola is playing really good. He's seeing the field really well. And is that going to be what overcomes them and sparks them and gets them the win that they need? Because, Joe, based off of their schedule, they win on Saturday.
I said this in the preview that we did in the preseason. If they win the Michigan game, they're going to go to the playoff. Like, seriously, 10-2, 11-1, accomplishable to go to the playoff, as long as they don't have a silly loss there. I think that you bring up a good point here, and maybe this does end up creating an opportunity for Matt Rhule to really build that program, or to gain that program building win. That victory in which we talked about with Texas A&M beating Notre Dame. We talk about all these victories against premier blue blood programs that you have that allow for your team to rally around itself. I'm going to keep pushing the Raiola bit here because understandably their offense wasn't as productive as it should have been. But I thought that Raiola had a number of really tight throws where he had to place the ball with some real fantastic precision. And he did it. I think that this kid is in his bag. And I think that just because they had a little bit of a shaky first game with a brand new offense isn't reflective of what they can accomplish this year.
It ain't brand new.
Boy, but the whole system was not completely implemented mid-year last year. They didn't throw the whole system.
I played in the air raid with Mummy and them. Joe, Joe, bullshit. They roll out colors for runs. It's the same thing. Ask Hal.
Okay, no, look, I understand that. I understand that it's not a hard offense to learn. Hence why so many teams use it. I'm merely just pointing out, just because Holgorsen took over mid-year last year is not the same as them starting fresh in week 1.
Well, you've been a year in it. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
You've been in it a year. So
okay.
I don't, okay.
I don't I think that there's still a little bit of grace to be given to them for the first game of the season against I don't want to call Cincinnati tough, but it is more of a week 1 challenge than most people had that were playing FCS and G5 teams. Where I am leaning and why I keep bringing up Dylan Raiola. You have for Nebraska, they are 6th in EPA per drop back. And we have Michigan, who's 53rd in that same category. It is the principle that we brought up in the Oklahoma preview, but I felt like we kind of ignored it. We ignored the fact that they don't have explosive receivers. If they get into a situation where they're down by multiple scores and they need to put points on the board, they can't do it at the current moment. That was what cost them against Oklahoma. They were moving the ball, they're running the ball. And then the minute that they got stopped on 1st and 2nd down, where was the big playmaker that they needed? They opted to kick field goals because they couldn't finish in the red zone. They'd get 60% through the drive and they couldn't finish. Like, I just think that if we get into a situation here where Raiola does catch some rhythm, as great as Bryce Underwood has looked, he does not have the guys to turn to at receiver. He just doesn't.
I just want to throw this out there. When you said Michigan doesn't have explosive receivers, and I'm thinking neither does Iowa last year, and they won 13-10. They had 5 first downs last year. And I know it's a completely different team. I know it's a completely different situation. But it's just where my mind went to. I'm like, Iowa had 5 first downs last year. 5.
That was last year. This is
I get it. Does Sherrone Moore not coaching in this game change anything?
I know this is a cop-out answer, but I honestly don't know. I don't know what Biff is doing.
Either. Well, I don't know either. And I don't think it changes the overall game plans of what you would have done anyway. Maybe offensively of what Sherrone Moore would have allowed with Bryce Underwood, but Joe, I got to be honest with you. I felt like last week was the first week that they took the training wheels off. I think Sherrone Moore, for what it's worth, Joe, let me ask a question. I mean, I just asked this. Is Sherrone Moore holding him back?
No, I mean, I wouldn't.
Joe, they didn't run zone reads versus Oklahoma, and now they're out there running him. It doesn't make sense to me, because why would, if you're not going to put him in a game like that where you can't throw the ball and let him run it, why in a meaningless game would you allow for him to try to get hurt and then you not do it? Like, why wouldn't you? It doesn't make sense to me. Let's see what this week brings, and maybe it was just a 1 week, you're playing a bad opponent, whatever. But listen, I don't know where to lean in this game. I really don't. The physicality is going to be an issue for them. Their defense had an issue with contain. And if this Michigan team can hit the edge and, Joe, they get that run game going, it's night-night. It's night-night time. I'm telling you, they're going to go night-night. I don't care what Raiola does.
The only thing that I push back with that is I don't think that this Nebraska team is lacking the same amount of physicality that they didn't have last year.
Cincinnati got the edge on you, and this run game's got more speed at the edge in Michigan. You got to give it to them. You knew quarterback power was coming against Cincinnati. You knew it. You knew the zone read was coming, Joe, and they couldn't stop it. This kid threw for 69 yards.
And one of the other fears that comes with this too is that they had so many issues stopping Sorsby as a runner. That's the one part for me that I'm legitimately concerned about from the Nebraska side. I'm leaning Nebraska at the current moment. I think that this could end up being a really big momentum building win for them to like really establish themselves as a resurging program that's getting back on track. Mostly because Raiola is actually playing well compared to all these other quarterbacks that we spent the entire offseason hyping up that have not lived up to it. But the one thing that you just brought up there and keep bringing up is Sorsby's performance does make me quite fearful of what Underwood can do. And it's not like they're catching Underwood after the Oklahoma game. They're catching him after the Central Michigan game where Poggi literally said that they gave him the green light, that they decided they're going to just let him go out there and play. They're not going to be restrictive. They're not going to make it feel like he has to follow a certain procedure.
Why would you make that comment?
Be careful.
Well, let me ask you this. Why would you make that comment if he wasn't the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Well, Biff is a lot more uncensored, so he's just going to say whatever he wants.
But that's my point. People who are uncensored will tell you what's going on in that locker room.
Which is why the media needs to keep asking Biff questions, because Sherrone's not transparent, as we know. He's not going to – he's very –
No.
He didn't bother to really explain why they didn't go for it on those fourth downs when they needed to.
Exactly. That's my point. And listen, there were just some times and moments. I know one of them got called back for a holding, but Joe, you have some really interesting runs. He's checking stuff at the line. He did not do that against Oklahoma. And I get it's Oklahoma and you're on the road. It's a true freshman quarterback. Like, I get all of that. The other thing that turns to my mind here, Matt Rhule, you just had a freshman quarterback. You know what this kid's going to struggle with. Go send pressure right at him. But the not being able to attack the boundary, let me not say the boundary. Not being able to contain and run lanes is an issue for me. It is an issue. If Cincinnati can do it, Michigan can do it.
Can I reemphasize, though, something that we haven't brought up?
Sure.
That has been something that we've, for some reason, overlooked in a couple of weeks that we shouldn't have.
Sure.
It is a home game at Nebraska, and you've got a true freshman quarterback traveling. We overlooked that the first time, and I think it helps Bryce Underwood that he had the Oklahoma game already underneath his belt, where he was challenged, and you could kind of see as the third quarter came around and he was really struggling. It did look like a situation where he was overwhelmed mentally.
I don't think Nebraska's Oklahoma, though. They ain't got that defense.
Yes, but I meant like the home setting for Nebraska is part of Oklahoma's.
Well, I haven't been either, so I'm gonna be. I don't know what I don't know. That Oklahoma defensive line is far supreme to Nebraska's front seven.
I don't disagree with that.
Just the same hot take.
There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. I'm not going to sit here and act like that there isn't.
Justice Haynes goes for over 120.
I think that happens, but the question is does Underwood have the same level of passing success?
If he does, here's where I sit. I'll just be honest with you. I got to see Nebraska actually do it. I got to see him actually do it. But
have we seen Biff do it? Like, what evidence do we have of Biff taking a true freshman or just a team on the road?
I've seen players on that same team, literally these juniors that were there as freshmen, have their coach suspended in the middle of the year, and then Sherrone Moore come in, and then them going to run to a national title. Those kids were freshmen. Those seniors were sophomores. So they've been through this exact thing before. This isn't new to them.
That's fair. We had a comment from Elks, by the way.
I saw it. I'm all right on it. Elks sends a $2 super chat. Since he has better receivers than Michigan, let's be honest. No, they don't. I'm sorry. No, they don't.
No, Blake.
They threw for 69 yards.
I don't think either receiving group's very good.
I'm not saying Michigan's is great. I'm just saying that, listen.
I think they're pretty comparable. I think they're both pretty weak.
All right. I'm not getting in this semantics game with y'all.
Their best player is a tight end. Their best receiver is a tight end at Michigan, and I'm pretty sure he's banged up. Klein.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not going to sit here and defend their wide receiver room. I'm just not against it. I'm not going to do it. But
that's probably a good idea.
Do you remember how bad that Thursday night game was or Friday night game, whatever it was? Literally, they couldn't throw. Like, dude, Sorsby was so bad throwing the football.
No, I remember it. I had a 4 a.m. flight the next day, and it was the perfect game to fall asleep to. I had a 4 a.m. flight, and I fell asleep, and I didn't miss a damn thing.
No, you didn't. They almost clipped them. That's the whole thing there. What Nebraska team shows up? All right, let's get going on here. Joe, last game before we get out of here. I don't even know if you know what, I'm going to say it. The Civil War in Oregon this weekend. Oregon State versus Oregon. Joe, you can go over it on FanDuel. And when you do go over it on FanDuel, you can see that on FanDuel that it's a 35 and a half point spread for Oregon. They are the favorites. But, Joe, here's the thing. The over-under is 55 and a half. So they're expecting this one to get pretty lopsided.
What's the spread on FanDuel? What did you say it was?
35.5. Over under is 55.5.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I might take that. Blake, I to already jump in on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that this used to be a significant rivalry. In the past couple of years, we've gotten some pretty competitive games between these teams. This is not the same situation.
It's not.
This is not the same situation. Blake, I really do wonder, knowing this trajectory that Oregon's on and seeing what Oregon, they had a solid game against Northwestern. It wasn't up to the same level of dominance as the one that they had against Oklahoma State, but it was still a great game. This Oregon State team's really bad. It is like a calamitous level of bad. I have inadvertently watched this Oregon State team, not closely, but a number of times because they've been in my quad box. And every time I've looked over, there is a broken play, there's missed tackles, there's an interception, they have so many issues, and it's one of those things where their talent is just not there. And I don't mean to really dig in on this team and be super critical of them. They're possibly as bad as Oklahoma State was. And their head coach is really feeling it right now. He's getting questioned on if he really wants to be a head coach, if he thinks that he's really the right man for the job at the current moment after he took it after Jonathan Smith left. Blake, I wouldn't be shocked here if we don't see another dog walk by Oregon. I think that this is setting up for another annihilation.
So Oregon last week going on the road against Northwestern. And I saw some people kind of questioning them only beating them by 20. Dante Moore did not play the fourth quarter. He went 16 of 20 for 178, a touchdown and an interception. Dyree Hill led with 94 yards rushing. I felt like that they were sleepwalked after a very emotional game the week before. But I do think that there was something to be told there. And I got to give Northwestern a lot of credit. We didn't break that game down in its entirety after. Boy, that team fought hard. They kept punching Oregon right in the mouth, and Oregon's like, okay. We're going to – I got to give Northwestern a lot of credit for what they did. This one might get bad. And the last time in a rivalry-type situation, and I'd say rivalry-type situation – because of what Mike Gundy did, this team kind of had an emotional letdown and still won by 20. Oh, man, this one's going to get bad. I am interested to see in this game if Oregon State can implement some of the things that I thought Northwestern did. Let me explain. I thought that they showed Dante Moore one thing at the line of scrimmage and then bailed on it right as he's about to snap the football, and he got confused. A lot of young quarterbacks that's going to happen to. I don't think Oregon State is the team to implement something and knock off Oregon. I do, however, think that you can make some big plays, and I'm interested to see how Dante Moore responds. I'm really interested to see how their run game is going to start shaping up throughout the season. The reason I bring that up, too, is because when you look at their first three games, man, a lot of people are getting carries, and there's not a problem with that at all. But, Joe, yet you have another game with 7 players having a carry. And I know that you're beating the dog manure out of a lot of these teams. Hughes had the carry for 5 yards, but I don't really know what's his status. I don't really know what's going on there. I know that Hill had the big run, and he had the touchdown. But there's some runs in here, like Lamar had 11 carries for 38 yards. I am interested to see how their running game progresses because they've been able to kind of walk through some teams, and I don't know if they've consistently found the run game that they want. Maybe I'm wrong. I still think they're the most dangerous team in the country right now based off of what they've done. And I think that this one's going to get pretty nasty pretty quickly.
I think one thing that's been kind of funny when you're looking at this Oregon team that you almost don't even register because you're just seeing them kick the crap out of the teams that they've played. I was on PFF pulling, seeing guys that were having some tremendous starts to their seasons. And the snap counts for the guys that are their key starters is oddly low. So you got Amari Washington. I don't
low.
even think he was like a 97 snaps. Most of these guys were hovering around 100. We're about to hit game 4. We're 3 games into the season. I'm bringing that up to say that it's really crazy, Blake, how good Oregon has been. And they're doing this through 3 quarters.
Yes.
They're doing all of this by saying, all right, we're done. We're moving on to the 4th quarter. We're just going to worry about the next week. We're going to put our backups in. I kind of bring this up for this game specifically because this is the true important warm-up that they need for the Penn State game. I don't think that there's any real chance. I'm going to be very defiant about this. Just very clear, declarative about how I'm saying this. There is no shot that Oregon State wins this game. There's no shot that they keep this thing close. I believe that Oregon is going to use this game as an opportunity to get in and get out of there because next week they got to deal with Penn State. They got to get locked in and ready for that Penn State game, which that will be their season definer. That will be the one that establishes themselves at the top of the conference. That will be the game that will help effectively position them in the Big Ten championship game. It's just like the Ohio State game from last year. So to get in and out of there unscathed, no serious injuries, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself, that's the goal. This Oregon State team is bad.
The only way they keep it close is it's a rivalry game, whether some situations can get goofy. I saw a team in Texas Tech last weekend. We didn't really break the game down, but in reference to Oregon State, boy, Texas Tech just kept hitting explosive plays on them. And this is a whole nother beast. I mean, that's the point. If you're Will Stein and company, attack the perimeter. I mean, you have more. I think you have more speed than Texas Tech. I'd assume that you have more speed than Texas Tech. And Joe, this Oregon State defense got obliterated on the perimeter. I mean, running backs galore and screen passes and vertical routes, and Texas Tech obliterated them. They fight hard. And I like their young quarterback, or I like their quarterback at Oregon State. Yes. I'm not betting this game because
the spread is huge. They don't want us to bet it. That's the problem.
Yes. If I did, because of a rivalry game, I'm just going to hope Oregon State keeps it somewhat close in the first half, and then we go from there. But dude, Oregon State just got obliterated on the perimeter by a team that I just don't think has the explosive weapons that Oregon does.
Yeah, this Oregon State team has really collapsed since the whole end of the Pac-12, and they just haven't had the bodies. They haven't. Since Jonathan Smith left, they have not had the pieces in order to compete like they used to against Oregon. I think that what's important to bring up here is that Dan Lanning is a very emotional leader. And I think that he recognizes that even if there is this much of a talent gap between the two teams, he still needs to emphasize the importance of winning a game like this and winning it by a lot. I think that is going to be a big driving force for this. Just to illustrate, by the way, how bad Oregon State has been in a lot of their defensive categories, just defensive, how bad they are at the current moment, why they're probably not going to be able to slow down Malik Benson and DeCorney Moore and Dante Moore and Mekhi Hughes. They're 72nd in adjusted EPA per play. They're 111th in EPA per dropback, 60th in EPA per rush, and then they're actually decent at getting pressure with 37th in havoc rate. They are giving up, as you just said there at the Texas Tech game was the example of this. They're giving up big play after big play after big play after big play. I find it hard to believe that suddenly against this offense orchestrated by a brilliant offensive coordinator that they're going to catch some rhythm to slow down Oregon.
I mean, it was bad. It was bad.
It was bad. I watched the game, man. After it was delayed for a little bit. I watched it. It was depressingly bad to watch.
They just looked so slow on film. So Oregon, attack the perimeter, and we'll get out there. And listen, the only thing I'll say about Dan Lanning is this. Boy, I wish that he were my head coach. And I don't say that like I don't want Brian Kelly to be LSU's head coach, but what I mean in saying that is the man wore his heart on his sleeve last week, and some people went out there and criticized him, saying everybody can learn stuff from our locker room. Shame on those discrediting Dan Lanning. That's all I got to say about the matter. But I
thought his post-game message was incredibly impactful. We didn't talk about that. It was a really good statement by him. I'm shocked that people were criticizing that. I thought he was pretty down the middle about it.
I don't mean this in a wrong way, but people along the West Coast, female reporters asking these questions, you've never been in a locker room. I mean, again, I'm not trying to be rude, but have you been in the locker room? Joe, you have. I have. I mean, brother, we had a guy who literally lived in Sudan as one of our tight ends. He grew up 14 years there. I mean, we had nothing in common, but we shared a locker literally across from one another. Sudan. I mean, those conversations are eye-opening. And when you're around somebody, as long as you are, Joe, people don't realize you're around somebody every single second for 3 weeks. You're going to find out what the man – Joe, when you met Sean, your roommate, and you played with him, how long did it take you to know what kind of music he liked? Because if you're around him a long time, you're going to find out pretty quickly.
I don't know if I can necessarily – pinpoint that. I did used to hate Sean. I didn't like Sean originally. And I couldn't stand Sean for the first 6 months of me knowing him. And look at how that turned out.
Unfortunately, I think that's the effect that he has on everybody.
Yeah, apparently.
He made me mad. He literally made me mad the first second I saw him. You know why?
Why? What did he do?
He had on a Falcons hat.
I don't know what you expect.
Come on, Sean. Be better. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night. Peace.